superintendent to provide a regular system of feedback. Does that work for you, Mr. Matthew?
That would be fine.
Sounds good.
And I think that leaves it as open-ended as you need to for communication, diagnosis, problem solving, because there was a flood, whatever the reason is.
And it would be the same language.
I got all that up to
Review with the
provide.
The assistant to the
provide a regular
superintendent
system.
gets evaluated by the superintendent, we don't
Yeah,
evaluate.
yeah, that's true. But in the case of the assistant superintendent, I think it should be the same thing.
It's
not an assistant
Only-
superintendent.
It's not an assistant superintendent, it's an assistant
to the superintendent.
and they will follow under the new teacher evaluation system within the state. So that's already taken care of.
Karen.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so are there any other discussion items related to the superintendent's job description?
You're talking about the proposal.
Yes. To my left? No comment.
No?
So then I suppose we need to talk about the assistant to the superintendent's position description.
Is that on the agenda for the actual board meeting that happens after this meeting?
Is it?
What's that, the assistant to?
Yeah.
It's in a discussion item, because it's not a policy, it doesn't have to have reasons, it's there for information at this point.
I just thought more people
But
might.
it's drafted and we.
It is drafted.
You want a copy of it?
You
Are
want-
you okay with me releasing it?
Yeah, okay.
I have an extra copy.
Okay. Thank you.
Does he have an extra copy too? We'll give him that.
He does. There.
Assistant to, yeah. Here's one extra copy. But it would be good to get discussion out on that, because it will just appear on the next agenda, and I don't know if you have another committee meeting planned before then, so if there are concerns, now might be a good time to start discussing it.
Actually, the next agenda will probably be to start to look and advertise for this position.
So are there any comments or concerns about the assistant superintendent
I
position
have
description?
a question.
Okay?
In the responsibilities to assist, coordinate, and improve the child study team process.
Correct.
Right now, there's no one doing that, correct, except the building principal.
The building principal was the superintendent at the time's designation as to who was to lead that group,
So
which has
now,
not been really effective.
so now this person is.
Well, they will oversee it. No, all CSP, even if you're going to RTII in the process, it still comes back to the building leadership and the principal overseeing that process. But this person will help develop the process and oversee and make sure it happens.
And did I read somewhere here where this person will also evaluate building principals?
Not here, it's part of the,
Somewhere?
it's on the, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right, okay,
And that's another reason why that's there, because that's will become part of that evaluation.
yeah, good. CST is child study team.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I hate when I do that.
I do it all the time, and I apologize, that's especially part of me. Child study team, RTII is response to instruction and intervention.
Thank you.
Any other board member comment in reference to the assistant to the superintendent's description? I thought it was well put together.
Thank you. It took a long time to figure out, to lay out all of my past duties and figure out how to not, to make sure everything gets covered and not cause anybody to have any issues in the future. Because I recognize the fact that it would be very hard to keep special ed under a superintendent. Then you actually need somebody who can devote their time to it.
Assistant to the superintendent.
I'm gonna personally hate to not see you ever seen me.
But you can always call me back and share advocate. I'm better than Stacy.
You're supposed to be.
I know, but I was today.
Supervisory / education.
Okay, so we've reviewed policy 2220.1. We've talked about the application process. We've reviewed the job descriptions. We next need to talk about the screening process. How do we screen all the hundreds of applicants we're going to get?
I think we had to do this before.
And we looked at this before. Do we just distribute all the applications to every board member and then we pick the top 5? Does that need to be decided now?
It doesn't have to be decided now, it can be something that's sort of the ongoing work of the committee. Because you've agreed to accept the applicant, an internal applicant, you wanna get started on that right away. Districts use a variety of methods to screen applicants, and Karen's gonna be more up on this than I am, but I know at least one superintendent who was filling principal positions had a process of using, gosh, I gotta use my education terms, a rubric, to screen applicants, sort of excluding, you know, all those things like age, gender, all the things that you would never want, that are never gonna be considered, of course, but sort of looks at, is their application complete? Do they have the required components? And that usually filters out some people, like, were they late in setting the application? Did they fail to X, Y, Z? And then from that point, and Karen, jump in if I'm wrong on any of this, if they use that rubric for compliance with the application, then at some point, a full application might be considered with more of those details. Am I in the ballpark here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, they're kind of like the same rubrics that, we've always used when it's hiring anybody. It's like when I've had special ed teachers in the past, it's, you know, do they have a special ed certificate? Yep.
Yeah.
You know, do they have experience teaching special ed? Because to me, that was an important thing as to whether or not they just had a certificate or whether they had experience that could get them an extra point. Not that the other people may not get interviewed, but it just, and how much, you know, what was their area?
I'm not gonna mention that.
And this,
I like that matrix.
the strange
Yeah,
thing is
well,
though,
it's
and I think this is an interesting point, you'll get a lot of applicants and you will get people who apply who have none of the requirements. So there does need to be a way to sort of like get through those quickly, because if they like are like, no, please consider me, but I don't yet have my supervisory certificate, or whatever the case is, I think as a board, you need to at least set a baseline.
I don't think we're gonna get hundreds.
Yeah, we have to recommend to go ahead and start the interview process with internal, and then we can go with the advertisement if we feel we wanna do that.
Yeah, you have a number of options. You can do them simultaneously. You can say we're going to consider our internal applicant first and then advertise. It's really up to you, whatever the consensus of the board is. You've already indicated intention to receive the application and interview Karen. The question is, when are you gonna do public advertising, if you do it at all? And if you do, what you're gonna use, and if you're okay with this one.
I thought we decided that Mr. Matthews was going to make a motion in the meeting that we were going to do public advertisement, and that I was going to second it, and then we were gonna vote.
And I think there was a consensus at least on the fact that you would at some point advertise. The question I had for my to-do list was when? And I think the board needs to indicate if you're going to do that.
Is there a timeline that we have to fill this position?
So you have a vacancy that occurs July 1.
Yes.
Well, June 30, July 1.
Brooke, let me just clarify. If we want to hire within, do we need to advertise out?
There's no requirement to advertise out.
So we as a board could nominate it from within. Without
We could hire from within.
without advertising.
But
Under
you
your
haven't given
policy,
the
it
application.
says that you are supposed to select a committee. You've decided to use the entire board. And so these are really the only restrictions you have. Seek expert assistance or not to make the vacancy known. And how you make that vacancy known, you know, is really up to you.
I think because we have
And when.
said that we intend to accept an application from Ms. Kugler, that we should set a date by which that application has to be received. That should be the first thing we do.
But we got, no, first is make sure that the position is correct. Got the wording on it,
Yes,
but
yes.
get that approved first. second.
But we can still set a date for it. I don't think we have to finish that before the application is in, do we?
No, I mean, I think if you
Well,
do,
what
it'll
do
be
you
a
do?
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really wanna keep moving, I mean,
Yes.
the goal is to,
Good.
whatever you're doing, you need to be doing something, because July 1 is looming.
Okay, so when do we want the application?
We've already voted at the last meeting to receive an application. So has that came forth?
Are you comfortable using the statewide application for teachers that Karen has recommended is already used in the district?
Yes.
Okay,
Everyone,
everyone generally
Yes.
okay with that? I'm gonna go through the list. Are you generally okay with the advertisement, depending on when we decide to use it?
Yes.
Are you okay with what we put in the advertisement, which is a cover letter, a standard application, resume, letter of eligibility, sealed transcript, clearances, and 3 letters of recommendation? Does that work? Okay, so now you have your process. So you don't have to create any of those, they've all been created. Karen, what am I missing?
The deadline.
A deadline. And that goes along with your time frame about considering internal and external applicants. And you have position descriptions which will be approved, which doesn't sound like there's gonna be much of a contest on those.
Right.
You're all relatively in agreement, which is great.
So for the deadline, we would have to have, we would definitely, if we're gonna receive applications from outside, then we're gonna definitely wanna have those done before, the last meeting in May.
You only have one meeting currently in May,
Oh.
which may be a whole nother issue.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine going through the process and advertising for less than 30 days.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I think it would only make sense that you would initiate the process with Karen, the applicant you have in front of you, with the process you've just all agreed on. And if you decide you wanna advertise at the same time, sure, but you really, there's 2 months.
just to
So-
get that one out of the way.
Not to get it out of the way, but so that you don't lose time, you have someone in front of you and you're gonna be advertising. So either you advertise and you wait 30 days and you consider all of them at once, or you at least give consideration to the candidate you have now, or you consider them all at the end of June. I mean, you have a lot of options, but it will take a while to get it to the advertiser, out for 30 days, review of applications, deadline.
My recommendation is that we go ahead and do the interview, the internal interview with Karen. And from our findings, from our decisions from that, if we decide that we need to go advertise, then we'll advertise again.
I agree with half of that statement. I think we probably should move forward with an interview with Karen. However, I think the process that we use with Karen should be the same process that we use with every other. So we need to take some time to develop that process.
Well,
I concur. It has to be the same to be
Yeah, that's
fair.
the
The
same.
same questions.
So it will be the questions, you have the process, I think it will be the questions for the interviews and the rubric and whatever else you typically use for hiring, other than what we have in the advertisement.
This policy 2210, is it have to have 2 meetings?
We're not writing that policy. Which one are you talking about?
That's what the policy is.
Oh,
Oh,
superintendent, yeah.
So we can't vote on that tonight.
So,
No, the second
First
reading will be May 11th.
so we won't have a standard until May 11th.
Yeah, you won't have a position description that when they look on the website, they will see the old description, and what you can do is you can post the old description and the revised one that you believe will be approved, in case candidates start looking, if that's what you decide to do.
How about, every Friday, take a look at what comes in and schedule appropriately, because you don't want to do. Take a look at them and at least weed out, this person doesn't, at least do that. You have no idea how many you're gonna receive.
Right, but you have to have a deadline. Because then you sit down and look at all of them. I don't think you can take every Friday and go through a few. You really have to get all that you're going to accept by a certain time.
What is our first meeting in June, our first meeting in June?
Too late.
And we could develop additional meetings to get this process.
Yes,
I
exactly.
I think that's what you're talking
If
about.
you're gonna publicly advertise this soon, I mean, you need to make a decision on that, then you should be